Welcome to Business Edge Radio, the show that gives you tips, tricks, tools, and techniques about how to build a more profitable business, while at the same time creating your perfect lifestyle. It's a show about working less and living more. A few golden nuggets, a little bit of wisdom, and over 35 years of business experience to help you keep your edge. Lifestyle entrepreneur, best-selling author, internationally renowned business speaker, and daddy of three, Mitch Graff brings the heat with actionable techniques for building the business and lifestyle of your dreams. Now your host, Mitch Graff.
Well, hello there, my Unleashed tribe, and welcome to yet another jam-packed edition of Business Edge Radio, the ultimate brainstorming session for your business and your life. I'm your 59-year-old host in a 12-year-old body, Mitch Graff, and today's show is chock full of golden nuggets and useful tidbits that I think you'll find helpful in your quest to become the supreme leader of the entire universe. Well, maybe just your backyard or your cubicle, but helpful nonetheless. We're going to talk about how our productivity has shifted over the past 12 months because of COVID-19 and the fact that so many people are now working remotely from home. I have a very interesting conversation with leadership and productivity expert Lynn Bonner, who shares some great ideas on how we can maintain a high level of productivity during our days. My review today is on a book entitled Contagious, Why Things Catch On. And we end our vast plethora of fun with a meat marinade recipe that will have you jumping out of your chair to make it. So make sure you stick around until the end for that. The COVID-19 pandemic has pushed tens of millions of employees to work from home. And many of those workers had never worked from home before. Because it happened so quickly, before any business could really think through how to make sure they didn't have hiccups in the systems, there was a huge decrease in work product and productivity for many businesses. A number of these remote work arrangements were implemented suddenly, leaving employees and managers alike to navigate a new work reality alongside personal anxieties and concerns about the public health crisis. If you can believe it, that was almost a year ago that we all started dealing with not only massive shutdowns and layoffs, but also our kids being sent home to be educated by mommy teacher and daddy teacher. Our social interactions went to zero. We quadrupled our time spent on our devices, which is not a good thing, and personal stress has went through the roof. Now, granted, there was and still is a silver lining in all this that I think we all forget sometimes. The amount of time that many of us have been able to spend with our families has went up dramatically, which has been a blessing in disguise, I believe. Things that we took for granted were given back to us, like spending time with our spouse or partner, hanging out with our kids, sitting on the back deck, staring at a tree. We're able to strip away all the pretense and glossiness of our lives and return to a much, much simpler time. However, not everybody feels that way. For many people, they were cut off from their kids, cut off from their parents and family, which led to a feeling of isolation and depression and of loneliness. And when we have those types of feelings, it's difficult to get excited to go to work or get excited about walking your dog. When we aren't happy, it's a fact that we don't perform at our best level, meaning that our productivity slips downward. For those people who depended on the workplace motivation that working in an office culture provides, they were faced with being sent home to work with no people around, no one to take a break with, no one to laugh at the boss with, and no boss to help keep us on track. Yes, we have things like Zoom and GoToMeeting to help get us through, but it's not the same as being with someone in person. Without intentional efforts from both workers and management, remote work, especially during a tense, uncertain situation, can leave staff feeling distracted and isolated, unmotivated, and of course, stressed. This isn't typical remote working. This is a crisis work-from-home scenario that we're all dealing with. Work and life are colliding in ways that we've never seen before. You're now in your personal space, not your usual professional environment. According to research from the Society of Human Resource Management, 71% of organizations are struggling to adapt to remote work, especially in the areas of productivity and communication. And 65% cited maintaining employee morale as their top challenge. COVID-19 related stress is having a dramatic impact on productivity. Meanwhile, feelings of burnout and unproductivity have increased through the roof. Communication, support, trust, and recognition must be priorities in this new normal to maintain a high engagement and morale. So here's some areas for you to think about for successful remote work. Number one, set some priorities. Because of all the competing demands for workers' attention right now, it becomes more important that leaders step in and help prioritize what needs to get done. Reduce clutter by removing things from the to-do list that aren't essential and let people focus on what is. Because things are changing so rapidly for reasons that are out of our control, the more that systems are set up that encourage daily check-ins about your expectations and priorities, the more it will save everybody a lot of frustration and will set the direction for the workday. Workers must be realistic about what they can and can't accomplish based on their home situation and should let their managers know this up front. They must be honest with their managers and their bosses and coworkers and not overcommit. Depending on your living circumstances, trying to achieve productivity standards that are unrealistic can also be very harmful. Let's be honest, if you have a first grader in the next room working on abcmouse.com for a class assignment and they have a question to ask, you will get interrupted. If you have a teenager that has a question about the pentatonic scale in music, you will get interrupted. And if that load of laundry needs to get shifted from the washer to the dryer before it starts to mold, you will get interrupted. Normally, remote workers have peace and quiet and large blocks of times to concentrate without interruptions. But these aren't normal times. With spouses and partners and kids in the house at the same time, things are altogether shaken up. In some cases, employees are choosing to get the bulk of their work done in what used to be traditional off hours, allowing flexibility to work whenever and not necessarily during traditional daytime work hours. Of course, if you are a telephone support person that is required to field calls during certain hours, this approach doesn't work. Number two, define boundaries. Remote workers should designate a certain area of their home as a workspace in order to concentrate better and minimize the disruptions. Find a stress-free zone where you can concentrate, and if you don't have a separate room, you need to find an area with minimal traffic or a corner of a room that's off of the main area. Set tight physical boundaries around your designated workspace that is off limits for your housemates, spouses, partners, and kids. If possible, only go to your designated space when you need to work. It's very important to prevent intrusions into your workspace by informing others that during at-home work hours, you are unavailable and should not be interrupted 99% of the time. Now, psychological boundaries also need to be established and strengthened so at-home workers are not constantly reminded about temptations around them or unfinished personal tasks that could compromise that productivity. Now, the reverse here is true as well. After a reasonable day's work, put away your electronic devices and your work tools. Keeping work reminders out of sight keeps them out of mind and helps you relax and recharge and get back to your regular life. Number three, over-communicate. Practice as much transparency as possible. If people don't have information, they're left to make their own inaccurate conclusions. Managers need to over-communicate to make sure people have all the information that they possibly can have in order to stop worrying about things and be more productive. This crisis has provided opportunities for companies to celebrate stories of their organizational resilience and successes in overcoming the challenges. Management needs to encourage their teams to assert themselves as well. Give people a voice to express what they're experiencing. And that can be done through formal mechanisms like pulse surveys or through direct and personal engagement with your employees. Move from asking, "Are you safe and well?" to "How are you working? How are you connecting? How are we responding?" And make sure that the feedback is incorporated effectively. Number four, practice self-care. People need to be conscious of their mental state. Productivity happens when people can reduce their stress levels. And this is kind of common sense. Build self-care into your daily routine, whether that's a walk in the sunshine, contacting a loved one, or spending some virtual time with some colleagues. Get outside as much as possible so you don't get a bad case of cabin fever. And there's mounting research that shows that spending time in nature lowers your stress, helps you relax, and also clears your mind. After work hours, watch a good movie, read a book, cook a fun meal, and lead as much of a full social life as you can. Use FaceTime and Facebook and Skype with friends and family members so you feel connected to the people in your life that mean the most. And don't forget to keep your attitude in check as well. Your greatest power is your perspective. It can victimize you or empower you. When you look for the upside in a downside situation and figure out what you can control and what you can't, it's much easier to accept whatever is beyond your control. And last, don't work bell to bell without breaks. The truth is, we are not designed to work nonstop. Our bodies and minds follow a daily cycle called the Circadian Rhythm, which are physical, mental, and behavioral changes that follow a roughly 24-hour cycle, responding primarily to light and darkness that's in our environment. Think of healthy sleep. You don't simply close your eyes and enter one state of sleep for 8 hours, then you wake up. You shift between several 90-minute cycles of deep, restorative sleep and lighter, dream-filled REM sleep. Turns out this is how we were meant to work also. Going full throttle for 8 hours goes against our design. During the day, we cycle through ultradian rhythms. These are periods where we are more and less focused. I recommend taking a 5-minute break once an hour to give your mind just a little bit of a reprieve, which will also help keep your mental batteries charged. But be careful that the 5 minutes doesn't turn into 8 minutes, then 11 minutes, then 30 minutes, or you're going to find yourself in a position of being less productive than you need to be and maybe just out of a job. Another approach is to work 4 or 5 90-minute chunks throughout the day, with breaks in between. A good practice is to schedule no more than 6 important tasks a day that you can fit into these segments. Set a timer, not on your phone, and that will help manage your rhythm. Or if you are tuned into your body's signals, just notice when you get restless and groggy or a little bit less focused. That means it's time for about a 15-minute break. Have you ever gotten so into something that all sense of self or your surroundings kind of melts away? This often happens during passive experiences like watching a captivating film or a TV show. We can also enter these flow states during activities, like when a basketball player seems to repeatedly be flying down the court, making every shot for several minutes. They're in a flow. At work, flow is a little more difficult to attain. We are bombarded by distractions from a multitude of different communications like emails and texts, video conferencing, phone calls. We vacillate between the various goals that must be accomplished by the time the whistle blows instead of focusing on one task at a time. A demonic ritual called multitasking. Multitasking. That's a subject for another time and place and another episode. And finally, streamline. In my experience, there's 2 kinds of people. The type that go through their day like a bubblegum wrapper in the wind. No real idea on what they want to accomplish that day. They just go about their day without intention. If a boss tells them they have until 4 p.m. to finish a project, guess what? They'll use all the time up until 4 p.m. to finish the project. The second time a person has a solid idea on what they want to accomplish before the day even begins, and they chip away at their to-do list with laser-like focus. They will finish that project by 1 p.m., freeing up all that additional time to dedicate towards other tasks. Thinking like the second person can revolutionize the way you approach your day and how you go about making every day filled with productivity. If you could be efficient with the systems that you have in place, making sure to eliminate the activities in your day that bring you very little results, this will allow you to become more productive, which in turn builds your self-confidence, which in turn makes you happier, which in turn makes you a better spouse or a parent, which in turn earns you a gold star. Today's book review is on a book that I feel should be required reading for anyone who owns a business or is in management of any kind. It's from New York Times best-selling author Jonah Berger, who's the marketing professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. It's called Contagious: Why Things Catch On. So what makes things popular? If you say advertising, think again. People don't listen to advertisements. They listen to their peers. But why do people talk about certain products and certain ideas more than others? Why are some stories and rumors more infectious? And what makes online content go viral? Traditional marketing suggests that quality, price, and advertising are the critical factors to determine a product or idea's ability to achieve success or popularity. But Berger argues that this misses the full view. Social influence and word-of-mouth transmission are far more essential to drive virility and ultimately account for 20 to 50% of all purchasing decisions. In fact, word of mouth, he explains, is effective because it's much more persuasive. People trust what others tell them much more than they trust what they see on TV, and it's also more targeted. People share stories with those who are actually interested in the topic. Interestingly, only 7% of word-of-mouth content is shared online. And while social media can help us reach millions of people, often face-to-face interactions are more effective and allow people to focus on the topic at hand instead of sorting through the hordes of data online. So how can you make your product or idea go viral? Berger explains that regardless of how plain or boring a product or idea may seem, there are ways to make it contagious if you know the right way to do it. Consistent throughout all viral content are 6 key ingredients, and he calls it STEPS, STEPPS. Social currency, triggers, emotion, public, practical value, and stories. None of which are mutually exclusive, but are all independently available for use on your product or idea, whenever and wherever it makes the most sense. In Contagious, Berger reveals the secret behind word of mouth and social transmission. He helps the reader discover how these 6 basic principles drive all sorts of things to become contagious, from consumer products and policy initiatives to workplace rumors and YouTube videos. You will learn how a luxury steakhouse found popularity through the lowly cheesesteak, why anti-drug commercials might have actually increased drug use, and why more than 200 million consumers shared a video about one of the most boring products ever, a blender. Contagious provides specific, actionable techniques for helping information spread, for designing messages and advertisements and content that people will share. Whether you're a manager at a big company or a small business owner trying to boost awareness for your products and services, a politician running for office, or a health official trying to get the word out, Contagious will show you how to make your product or idea really catch on. You'll find this book, as well as many, many other great reads, at powermarketing101.com/hotlist. That's powermarketing101.com/hotlist. Hello, Unleashed Tribe. I am so honored to have you as a loyal listener, and I'm very excited to tell you about the Business Edge Radio app, now available on Apple and Android devices. You can catch up on past episodes, watch short videos of the Business Edge Minute, our 60-second show that gives you quick and easy tips on building a better business and living a better life. And you'll get access to bonus materials that are only available on the app. In fact, I have a nice little PDF bonus waiting for you there right now. Plus, you can email the show, call the show, connect with us on social, check out our website, and even make a nice fluffy omelet. No, you can't really do that. Just go to the iTunes Store or Google Play Store, and you can download the Business Edge Radio app so you can be one of the cool kids on your block. Business Edge Radio, the ultimate brainstorming session for your business and life. Now available in the App Store. Download it today. And if you don't, I'll come visit you on your day off. My interview today is with leadership and productivity expert Lynn Bonner, who's all about business transformations with a big emphasis on people energy, focusing on tangible results. Energy is a very small component of culture, and she's an expert at creating 30% or higher productivity, driving dollars right to the bottom line of her clients. She's 100% behind helping more women into executive leadership roles while she changes businesses from the inside out. I hope you enjoy my wide-ranging conversation with Lynn Bonner. Well, Lynn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
I can tell you're excited, and I'm really excited myself just to dive into a discussion on productivity, a little bit about leadership and how that's changed in the last year or so. But I want to start with a conversation about workplace productivity.
Love it.
I think for a long time, productivity has kind of been a word that's been misunderstood in the business world. It's something that all companies have to constantly battle, in order to keep the edge of their sword sharp, right? But with COVID completely upending the traditional business model, I think that there has been and will continue to be a renewed focus on what true productivity looks like. Tell me about the extra challenges that we all now face because of the pandemic.
Oh, there are a few. The first one is we've gotten really used to being able to just pop up and go to a desk and speak with someone. That's not happening these days, right? Now we have to use really the technology in place. We have to start to really use more video conferencing. So you'll hear fatigue and all those type of things. But there are ways for teams to connect remotely via really technology. I mean, FaceTime, Zoom, WebEx, there's so many ways. And so productivity starts to be impacted because we can't have those instantaneous pop-up type of conversations anymore.
And if we do, it is on a Zoom call, or it's on a phone call, or it's on FaceTime with our phone. And that's a whole new thing now, isn't it?
It is number one for since March now. It is really the number one ways to connect. But I think there's still ways to maintain that productivity and really start to not lose the connections, because that is also something that directly impacts the way in which businesses and teams members work. So there are definitely ways for teams to have that video connection and be able to still see each other, because as you most certainly know, the number one way to communicate is physically, right? It's visual. Mm-hmm. It's saying okay, but being able to see if it's really okay by the way in which someone moves. And so while Zoom and FaceTime and all of these things help us tremendously in terms of connection, it can also be a little bit tricky and forces people to, just like they did in real life, really pay attention to the entire communication stream, not just vocal, not just voice.
And remote working is kind of a new experience for millions of employees across the country, or even owners that now have to create a home office, work from home. But when you work from home, you get to pick what you wear, you get to pick your environment, you get to build your home office and put whatever pictures you want on the wall. If you choose to have your dog in the room at the same time, you can do that. Cat's not allowed, obviously. But you get the ultimate choice in the kind of work ethic that you have. What do you recommend for people who are, let's say they're new to the remote working world, in regards to making sure they stay uber productive and stay on focus? Because I know that's one of the hard challenges. If you used to be in an office and your boss is always over your shoulder and you have coworkers that are kind of encouraging you to get your job done, and now all of a sudden you have none of that, how do we stay on track?
The power of habit. I'm a firm believer of the same things that I did in the office in terms of preparing myself and having conversations and being able to show up ready, maintain within my home office. My desk is clear. I have the same routine in terms of how I start and end my day, in terms of planning. I have the tools at my disposal close to me. I'm a planner, so I tend to know about when lunch is going to be, when my body ebbs and flows. So I've got planned, or at least an idea of when I'm going to take a break. And I'm really clear on communications with my teams on when things are blocked off on my calendar. So the same things I did in, taking a commute to work are the same things I do here. I still grab my coffee. I still maintain quite a bit of sense of the habit. Still get dressed, right? So all of those things, still kind of go through all those processes, because eventually we will, we'll return, but also just the lack of change from your mind, right? And your body, it's getting used to things. And so if you maintain that professional habit, it will continue throughout.
So when you in person, you wear the sport coat. I wear a polo shirt, usually Levi's and tennis shoes when I'm out and about. A couple days ago, I did a small program for a bunch of business people in India. I had my polo shirt, I had my sport coat. Truth be told, I had my pajama bottoms on below. So we get away with that.
So it's okay.
Yeah. Well, and I was reading a study recently. It was from, I think, the Australian National University, and it revealed that Australians have lost an average of about 167 hours worth of work between March of last year and the end of the year, which equates to about $5,000 a person. You extrapolate that, that's like $47 billion to the economy as a whole. And I've seen studies that also show that some companies are actually seeing an increase in productivity during the pandemic. What is it that these companies, the guys that are figuring it out, that are making their employees more productive, even if they're working from home, what are they doing differently in order to keep things running so smoothly?
I think there's really a connection with your people, communication, setting expectations clearly in terms of how we will continue to interact. I think setting a vision for your company and the way in which they work is going to be key as well, because regardless of whether they are all together or separated, they still have the ability to see the bigger picture and know where we're marching. And although we can't sit together, we still know where we're going. Mm-hmm. And I think that is really key for productivity. No one has to wonder, what are we doing today? We know because we've set the vision, we understand the strategy, we're mapping our day-to-day back to those big goals. And without, big brother hanging over your shoulder, you still have the ability to connect and work and focus.
And like you say, they have created these habits, or they take the same positive habits that they had in the work environment at the office and they bring them home. The hardest part, as you know, at the home office, I've been working from home. I actually have an office, but I've been doing that for 35 years. The hardest thing in the morning, when you walk across that virtual line in your brain, you have to be able to switch inside of your brain that says, okay, now it's productivity time. Now I have to get work done. And you got a hit list, you got a to-do list. Mine always has about 6 items, and that's it. I never have a list that has 38 items because I'll never get to them. But you know what? 6 is like a sweet spot. That's a wheelhouse where most people can get 6 things done on their list. But the hard part is, for a lot of people that are doing it for the first time, is they have to have this virtual fence around their professional time and their personal time. It's so easy, Lynn, to get pulled into the remote. So you can just real quick watch what the news is, or real quick catch up on the sports, or real quick go in the backyard and throw some balls for your dog. Remember, no cats allowed. It's really easy to get pulled into that. And I think for a lot of people, and I know several of them myself, their productivity has suffered. They've went down because this newfound freedom, they don't do well with it. That's why not everybody's an entrepreneur. Not everybody's meant to be a manager. They're meant to be an employee because they like that reporting to somebody higher up the food chain. What can you tell me from what you've seen out there across the United States and around the world, the companies that are doing it well, you told me what that is, but the employees that aren't figuring it out, the ones that are getting sucked into the temptations of working from home and going into the kitchen and reheating your coffee 9 times because you can, right? Because now you have the ultimate say. What can you recommend to people that are having challenges and they just can't develop those positive habits?
It's a great question because you raised some great points there. With freedom comes great responsibility, right?
Yes,
you have
it does.
The opportunity to just do whatever you feel, but it can very quickly turn into a really painful experience.
Oh, yeah.
What I see is accountability. Some of the best leaders and some of the best coaches, if you will, have really started to implement ways. If there are daily syncs, I'm an agile house. I'm all about implementing ways for us to stay connected really on a daily basis. And so utilizing, something as simple as a daily stand-up, if you're in the agile world, as a way to sync and hold that accountability. What did I do yesterday? What am I working on today? Are there any things that I need help with from the other team members to help unblock some things? What you'll find very quickly is because you're having that conversation on a daily basis, you're held accountable. Team members will ask, weren't you working on that 3 days ago? Are you stuck? Do you need help? Right? It starts to give that visibility, transparency, awareness to what's happening. And as leaders, we're looking for those opportunities to talk through and coach, not necessarily manage people, right? Because that's a very different view of the world, but coaching and leading people towards the direction that we need them to go for themselves, for their teams, and for the organization as a whole. So really accountability and visibility.
We'll be back with more of our interview after these words from our wonderful marketing partners. Fans of Business Edge Radio, I have a very special treat for you. As you know, I love barbecuing and making up any excuse to get myself outdoors. And that's why I'm so excited to partner with Barbecue Nation. They make incredible sauces and rubs and spices and meat shredders and grill scrapers and lots more. And they're offering a deal for our listeners. Check out bbqnation.net. And when you place an order for any of their products, you'll receive a 20% discount off your order when you enter the word EDGE at checkout. Looking for a magnet that lists your cooking temperatures or different types of smoking woods? They got that. Need a heavy-duty set of meat shredders for your pulled pork or shredded chicken sliders? They got that too. Or my favorite is their Magic Dust Everything Rub that will spice up just about any dish. Log on to bbqnation.net. That's bbqnation.net today. And when you enter the code EDGE at checkout, you'll receive a 20% discount just because you hang out with us on the show. Barbecue Nation, get your grill on. So as a boss, and I have employees and assistants all around the world, my daily connection with them is via email or via messaging app. What other tools do you recommend? Let's just say that I have a staff of 20 people. And I want them to be accountable to me, right? I don't want them to be completely on their own because I know that I'm just setting them up for failure. what is the best way to communicate with them? What tools do you recommend? Is it texting? Is it email?
I use a few.
Is it a daily Zoom?
It really depends on your leadership style. I tend to stay away from you must do these things. I love Asana. I am someone who likes to see the big picture and then see it being broken down into smaller pieces across my team. So I know if I've got a target of, X amount of revenue, well, that's broken down into multiple chunks that people are responsible for managing. And then it's broken down all the way to the teams. And I can see that they're doing a social media post. I can see that they're making a phone call. I can see that they're talking to someone, my sales team is talking to someone at X company. So that's one way. If you're someone who likes to see things and to see accountability and be able to visualize. I think FaceTime and Slack and Zoom are also my favorite tools because I can see. Right. We can speak, we can IM really quickly. We can be able to keep that agility and movement. Email is certainly a tool. I get a ton of them. So for me, it's not the best tool for me. I just feel like I get buried, but my brain works that way. So I can very quickly see it, answer it. And then also, like I said, the project management tools, being able to see everything easily in one place is key.
And email is something I think now, especially the last 12 months, we are getting over inundated because everybody has realized that it's an easy way to communicate. But what's happening now is people are getting into the long form email. They're doing a 19 paragraph email. Well, guess what? Our attention span is so short that with email campaigns, especially if you're communicating with staff or with customers, you really got to keep it short. Keep to the main points, bullet points, boom, boom, boom. Get out, let them move on because we have so many other things we want to accomplish. We don't have 19 minutes to sit and read a single email. So, from a management standpoint, you want to keep things concise, clear, to the point so you can move on. Do you agree?
I 100% agree. Bottom line it. I am always start with the end in mind, right? So the very first sentence is what I actually need you to do or validate or confirm or go, answer. And then the rest of it is all the details and the backup around it, right? So if you need more details, go see below. But this is what I need you to take away from it immediately. And I think that has helped because now they can move. But if they're, everyone's got a different personality. So some people need to know the why and the purpose and the intended outcome. So you can put all that in the bottom. But for those who are more short case, just tell me what you need straight at the top, and then they can run for it.
I like it. So innovation and I think collaboration has been dramatically affected over the last year for obvious reasons. We can't get together like we used to brainstorm and to create ideas. And I love Zoom like everybody else, but it's not the same as meeting somebody for coffee, meeting in a boardroom with 6 other like-minded people to kind of flesh out ideas and create innovative concepts. And the power of groupthink, I think, is something that many businesses took for granted before. And I think innovation has suffered over the past year. How can a business make sure that they are continuing to pump out innovation and new products and new ideas and new services, even when things are, because I think right now a lot of people are sitting back waiting. Oh, I'm just going to wait until things get better, until we go back to normal. Hey, hate to tell you, it ain't ever getting back to normal again.
Right.
So the companies that are waiting, they're going out of business, unfortunately. So you need to be proactive with it. But what do you recommend to companies that feel like they're not pumping out the same amount of innovation that they were before the pandemic hit?
The key is to keep your teams engaged. So if you've got, innovation houses or strategy teams, there are so many tools out there for them to be able to use to still brainstorm and have that interactive sessions. I mean, you've got Mural, you have Stormboard, you've got all these types of tools that you can literally have multiple teams write and type and engage on and truly have a immersive experience. Granted, it's still online, but they're still able to engage. And if you turn on the camera, even better, right? Because now you can see when people are, oh, wow, that was a really exciting thought for you, or you completely disagreed with that. Tell me why, right? But so it's still a place for you to express, share, align things. Because then right out of that meeting, go back to productivity. When you're done, you can actually just pull all that information out versus it being on a whiteboard that you now have to retype or all in your paper notes that you've written down, which I'm still pen and paper for the most part. But I think
Me too. Yeah.
Yes, like it works perfectly. But then there's another step of typing it all down. So I think it's very, very, very helpful to be able to do that.
So you started something called the Action Leadership Lab. Tell me about what that is and why you started it.
I started it because I have been in the executive leadership role for, almost 20 years now in one way, shape, or form in that consulting world. And what I find is there's a lot of planning, a lot of strategy, a lot more planning and strategy, a lot more talking about the plan and the strategy. And we never quite get to implementing all these great ideas. And so the business is really focused on multiple things. One, moving us into action, and that takes conversations and really a different mindset shift, one. And then the second piece is really, as I'm in these executive leadership conversations, there's not a lot of people who look like me. So it also became a way to understand what are those in that world looking for. Is it education? Is it experience? Is it the way in which people interact? So really being able to understand from the front row seat, and then being able to bring that information back to those who have never seen it, never engaged in it, but are really interested in being in that executive leadership space. So really multiple reasons. Get those who are already in executive leadership to move, take action, and then also to share with others who are interested in that type of role to get the access, experience, exposure, training, coaching to get there as well.
And you say executive leadership. I think a lot of people, when they hear that, they think of a big corporation. But you can be a band of one, a company of one. You are in executive leadership. The thought processes and the activities that you do are that of a leader. So just because you hear that word executive leadership, don't think that you have to have 150,000 employees working underneath you. You can have you, and that's it.
Exactly.
So you have a quote on your website. It says, ambitions and dreams are great to have, but often hard to achieve without support, guidance, and sometimes a little kick in the butt.
Yes.
We can spend years thinking about our next steps instead of taking action now. What do you recommend to somebody? Because right now there's more businesses being started than in the history of the world, because a lot of people have this time on their hand and they say, you know what, I'm going to go after my dream. I'm going to go after my side hustle, or I'm going to start a business with my wife. What do you recommend to someone that is thinking about starting some new business or new side hustle right now? What are the most important things for them to consider?
Start. Stop thinking and start.
Done is better than perfect, right?
Right. It's get started. Find someone that can help you as you move along, but don't overthink it. Don't get stuck in planning and strategy. The first step is usually the hardest, right? Because it's getting into momentum. But once you start to take the first step, the second one seems so much easier, and you'll just start to move. And you will also, because you're taking that action, start to find people who are more than happy to help you and to support you and to answer your questions. But if you never move, you never get any of that.
Remember Santa Claus is coming to town? You got the warlock, or the mountain warlock on top of the mountain, and he sings the song, just put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking out the door. I'm a terrible singer, but we all remember that. And it is true. Once you take that first step, the second one becomes so much easier because you have momentum behind you, and you start to believe more in your thought or your idea or your business concept. And before you know it, you're down the road, and it's like, wow, why didn't I do this a year before? Why didn't I do this 5 years ago? And then you start having regrets, and that's never a good thing when you start looking back and wishing you had done something else. But you're right. Start. Whatever that first step is, just take it. And done is better than perfect. If you're going to wait for that day when everything is just right, you'll die without ever having to give this thing a try. When you're not working, Lynn, tell me the kind of things that you do.
Oh my gosh, I'm a nerd.
You're a nerd.
I'm a nerd. I will read a book. It runs my husband nuts because he's like, let's go outside. And I'll step out for like 2 seconds and I'll step out with the book. So I like peaceful things. I am either staring at the lake or like on the water, or I am reading a book, or you'll also find me we're so simple as you say that. I really do think we spend most of our time staring outside. It's just sitting outside or staring at a pool, staring at a body of water of some sort. Of course, we haven't taken any vacations this year, but July, we are eyeballing Florida. And so I am ridiculously excited about that because it's beach time, read a book, sit in the sand, bake in the sun. So yeah, that's really it.
Well, you're just in Atlanta, so you can get in a car and drive. You don't have to jump in an airplane and go through TSA and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. We can get to the Gulf really, really easily. And my family is from there. So
I like it.
I get to take out 2 things at once.
I love it. And when most people hear the word road trip, they think of a weekend at the coast or a drive to the mountains to stare at the lake. But you have a different definition, don't you?
Taking a road trip?
Yeah.
I do. In the world of transformations.
Okay.
And so when we think about road trips there, it's really a small change that we can make in our lives right now that will start to move us down the path. So if you're thinking personal transformation, this is the one small thing I'm going to do. And the business transformations, it's changing a process. And I'm all about building habits. And so if we can start really small, that kind of leads into our small things in a business, small process change we can make, small ways in which we interact differently within a business, and really start to think about road trips from that perspective. We're taking a road trip instead of, good gracious, we're taking a quest when people freak out, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, and road trips mean something different in my world.
I like it. And we talk a lot on the show about being productive and figuring out what your high valued activities are, and then doing those things, and then figuring out a way to either delegate or automate or get rid of the stuff that we all do during the day that doesn't bring us any high value results, right? It's the old 80-20 rule. And I think that's even more important now with everything that is going on, until we do have sunshine that's shining all the time in the business world, and everybody's back open at 100% capacity, and our restaurants are flourishing again, and the health clubs, the movie theaters are back rocking and rolling. Until that day comes, it's even more important that the systems that we do have in place in our business and in our personal lives, but let's just talk about business, we have to make sure that they're efficient. And so we need to break them down into the smallest number of pieces and then rebuild those systems with fewer moving pieces. And I think the companies that have done that or continue to do that are the ones that are thriving, that are seeing this boon in productivity.
100% agree with you, because you've removed all of the redundancy, you've removed the waste, and you're really starting to focus in on the things that are the most important for the targeted goals you have, right? If you're worried about revenue, if you're worried about employee engagement, if you're trying to turn your customers into raving, referring fans, you really have to take a very different approach in how your business is working in terms of value. How do you deliver things to your customers and raving fans so that they love you, they promote you, and they do everything they can to keep in touch with what you're doing so that they're always seeking a new way to engage with you. And you have to worry about your processes and your people and the steps they take to deliver, because anything that slows that down, anything that gets in the way, will ultimately impact your goals. So absolutely agree. Address how it works inside, and you'll have beautiful outcomes on the end.
I like that. Not just a raving fan, but a raving referring fan. Someone that not only loves you, but they also send more of their friends and family and coworkers to you, which we all know that referrals spend more money, they're easier to sell, and they stay with you longer. It's just very easy. We'll be back with more of our interview after these words from our wonderful marketing partners. In today's business world, it's vitally important that you understand what I call the 7 pillars of business success, which are lifestyle design, time management, branding, sales, marketing, pricing, and social media. Regardless of what industry you're in, and whether you have a brick and mortar or are only online, having a solid foundation in these skill sets will set you up for success down the road. And to personally help you with your journey, I've written a book called The Business Basics Bootcamp, the ultimate crash course, now available on Amazon.com and from other fine bookstores. And it will give you a 30,000-foot view on these topics and many more. It'll help you slow down just a little bit so that you can get your business house in order and get your creative juices a-flowing. Log on to Amazon.com today and get your copy of Business Basics Bootcamp, the ultimate crash course. You can search my name, Mitch Graff, or search the title of the book. In the dog-eat-dog world of business success, the weak will perish and the strong will survive. Which will you be? If you know anything about me, you know that I love my early mornings, and I really love a good cup of fresh roasted coffee. There's nothing better than getting started before the rest of the world with a good cup of joe. That's why I'm so excited to have Mountain Creek Coffee as a partner. The process is so simple. You order, they roast, they ship, you enjoy. They don't roast your beans until an order is placed, which guarantees the absolute freshest coffee that you can get. Check out their artisan dark roast, medium roast, or decaf beans at mtncreekcoffee.com. And when you put in the code EDGE at checkout, you will receive 20% off your first order. I prefer the dark roast because of its full body and bold flavor. You order, they roast, they ship, you enjoy. Log on to mtncreekcoffee.com and enter the code EDGE at checkout, and you will receive a 20% discount off your first order. Pretty cool stuff. Mountain Creek Coffee and Business Edge Radio, a partnership brewed out of the love of coffee. So one of your hashtags that you have is Women Rock. Tell me about that.
Women rock. So as we've been looking at the pandemic and the things that have happened over the last year, studies have been demonstrating that women in crisis or women leading has really resulted in higher engagement. As we set those targets, they are smashing them. As we look at really employing more empathy, I'm not going to say sympathy, but really trying to sit a moment in the shoes of someone else and try to understand. It's hard to do sometimes, but really trying to see the perspectives have led to dealing with crisis, have led to reaching even more targeted goals, higher revenue, keeping the doors open, having less attrition, which costs millions of dollars a year. So all of those things really start to impact just how businesses run. And I just believe that with those stats, it is showing more and more that women rock.
Women rock. I love that. So you said you're a learning junkie, that you love to read. What book is by your bed right now?
Right now, I've read yours, of course. Right now, I am eyeballing a book by Monica Brown, and it's called Only One. And it is basically around really women of color in executive leaderships and how to get there, and really how to make sure that you're helping others get there as well.
Do you have kids?
I do not yet.
So it gives you that little flexibility of building your business and spending time with your husband and staring at the water in your backyard, right?
Yes.
And I think a lot of executive level people don't understand, especially if it's a first time business owner, they don't understand that unplugging and going to stare at that lake or stare at that tree in your backyard is vital to their success. You can't always keep your nose to the grindstone and expect to maximize your potential and to maximize your happiness factor either. So you have to be able to unplug. You go to Europe, they do built-in sabbaticals every year. You have to take like 3 months a year that you're off so your brain and your mind and your creativity has a chance to recharge. So when you go back to work, man, you are uber productive and you hit it out of the park. We need to learn how to do that more in the United States. I think the definition of an entrepreneur means you're working 80 hours a week, forsaking everything else, your family, your personal time, your life. Before you know it, you're 53 years old, you've had a heart attack, you're divorced, and what's it worth? Nothing. So I really think that we're going to go through a revolution in the next handful of years. And maybe this is the beginning of it. Maybe the COVID has awoken the business world. It's like, you know what? It's not all just about work. Now that people are home, they're spending time with spouses and partners and kids and themselves, right? Investing their extra time into bettering their education and reading more books or doing online courses or whatever it is, just self-improvement. And I see that as being a huge wave that has started since this whole thing started. So
I love it.
You agree with that?
I completely agree with that. I think it is the best thing that could have occurred out of such a very tragic moment in time.
Yes, very tragic, but that there is that silver lining, right?
I think rest is productive, and really trying to make that the new norm of being able to take a break, breathe, spend time with family, laugh, whatever it is that brings that higher energy vibe to you will help you be able to not only deal with everything that's happening around us, and having those that aren't very open to change and aren't very happy when changes occur will be able to better deal with it when they are rested and they don't feel so frazzled, right? You're always going. One of my statements to others is, in order to move further faster, we have to slow down. We have to take a moment, breathe, and that step will help us to be able to move faster later. But if we just go, we're not going to be as productive. We're not going to be as focused because our brains are just worn out, right? Our bodies are just dying for rest. And you also don't have your best ideas when you're tired. Some of your best ideas come when you're doing something random. You're washing dishes, you're driving, are taking a quick stroll. Your best ideas come from that. So when you talk about innovation, right, that doesn't happen sitting at my, staring at my laptop or, taking notes feverishly. It happens when my brain can breathe, when it can rest.
I'm so much the same way. My recharge is going to the mountains, finding a lake or a river or a creek with no cell service. It's very important to be unplugged, off the grid, and just being there and doing nothing else. And before you know it, creativity kind of creeps into your brain. And so when you do come back to work, it's that different perspective. You have new ideas, a refreshed view, and it does make a difference. And I think a lot of people that I know, and you probably agree, a lot of people have taken advantage of this time and done well with it. but there's also a large percentage of people that haven't done well. And a lot of it might just be because of the isolation, the lack of social interactions with coworkers and with their boss and with family and friends and all those things that we took for granted before. And now I just had one of my nieces had a 15th birthday on Sunday. My mom, my brother, my sister, all the cousins, we're all on a Zoom call. It's like, okay, this is just really strange, but it's what we have to deal with right now, and we made the best of it. But that's just the new reality. And it's hard for a lot of people that are used to having that social interaction, and it just makes it more challenging if they're trying to work remotely. What do you see as the biggest challenge for not just business owners, but for employees as well, moving forward into 2021?
The hardest thing is going to be letting go of the past. There is no way of going back to what was normal. I think that's the hardest thing. The second piece is seeking more innovative and creative ways to keep your teams and your engagement up. So that may be virtual parties. I mean, I've been to a few now with Zoom. Exactly. They're awesome because you can still see and, eat and drink. And I'm a gigantic fan of being able to break bread together.
Okay, we got to hang out more, Lynn. We got to hang out more.
Oh yeah, you got to do it. It's built into the fun of life. Like you still have to have fun, and food is like a big thing for us. Oh yeah, well, as I say that, I'm like, and all the food businesses you have. So yes, it is the absolute best way to do things. And so it doesn't have to be around let's all get together to work. Sometimes it's let's get together and have lunch. Even if it's virtual, let's get together and do a happy hour, at 5 to 6 virtual.
Yeah.
I mean,
have a glass of wine. Have a glass of wine together. Share something.
Exactly.
I like it.
So many ways to stay connected, although we can't physically be together.
So what's next for you?
So much. I am in the midst of trying to complete a book, which I can't believe you have so many already, because this is hard to me. I am also working on The Collective, which is an opportunity for women and women of color, particularly, to start to engage with each other and learn from others. So bringing speakers and trainers and those that are in these executive positions to start sharing that information and starting to really pull together a community of people that are interested in not only moving in terms of their careers, but maybe even taking some of that leadership capabilities and starting their own business empires. I do both, and I absolutely love it.
And it's called The Collective?
It's called The Collective. I couldn't get more creative than that one.
Is it online? Is there a place people can go to learn about it? Or is that still something that's in infancy?
Yep, it is online.
What's the name so we can tell everybody?
Action Leadership Lab, and it's called The Collective.
The Collective. So actionleadershiplab.com. That's how people can connect with you?
Yep, that is correct.
What about on socials? Do you recommend a certain platform over others as far as people getting a hold of you?
LinkedIn is probably the best one, and it's Lynn Bonner, Agile Leader. And then on Instagram, it's easy because I am Lynn Bonner.
Very simple, right?
Very simple.
And you have something else on your website. The definition of genius is taking the complex and making it simple, from Albert Einstein. And I think that's a perfect place for us to end today. I can talk to you for hours. But Lynn Bonner, thank you so much for taking the time and for your insights to the listeners.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I definitely enjoyed every moment.
Good luck to you. Can you tell that she loves life just a little bit? She's the kind of person who can make you smile just listening to her talk. My biggest takeaway, if we want to optimize our productivity, we must be masters of communication with our teams, which will drive enthusiasm throughout our entire organization. In today's business world, it is vitally important that you understand what I call the 7 pillars of business success, which are lifestyle design, time management, branding, sales, marketing, pricing, and social media. Regardless of what industry you're in, and whether you have a brick and mortar or you're only online, having a solid foundation in these skill sets will set you up for success down the road. And to personally help you with your journey, I've come out with the Business Edge podcast, which you're listening to right this second, and I've also written a book that I can highly recommend called Business Basics Bootcamp, the ultimate crash course. now available on Amazon.com, and will give you the 30,000-foot view of all these topics and many, many more. You know, reading is something that is slowly being replaced by videos and audiobooks or just scrolling through your newsfeed on social media, but I've always found reading to be kind of an escape from whatever is happening in the world. This book will help you slow down just a little bit so you can get your business house in order, so to speak, and get your creative juices a-flowing. Log on to Amazon.com today and get your copy of Business Basics Bootcamp, the ultimate crash course. You can search my name, Mitch Graff, or search the title of the book. In the dog-eat-dog world of business success, the weak will perish and the strong will survive. Which will you be?
Time for Cooking Corner with Mitch. Yum.
In our house, it's always barbecue season. Whether it's a nice summer meal of flame-broiled burgers and grilled asparagus, or a 32-degree rainy and windy winter day, I always love firing up the grill and throwing just about anything on it. Think I'm joking? I'll sometimes cook toast on the grill just to get me outside, even if it is just for a couple of minutes. One of my favorite things to grill are petite sirloins. They're typically smaller than other steaks, very tender, and perfect for a quick meal on the back deck. Today's recipe is for a simple marinade that you can not only use for beef steaks, but you can use it with chicken or pork or turkey or veggies. Now, the basic definition of a marinade is a seasoned liquid that you soak meat in to enhance the flavor and or texture before cooking. This can be a cooked or uncooked liquid mixture. More specifically, marinades usually use some kind of acid such as vinegar, wine, or lemon juice or lime juice. The acid helps break down the connective tissues in the meat, so it will be more tender once you cook it. Originally, marinades were really just salt water, which helped to preserve the meat or fish and, of course, imparted flavor through the salt. It was seawater, which led to the word marinade, which derives ultimately from the Latin word for sea, mare. We also get words like marine and maritime and mariners from this root word. See? Now you're smarter. You're very welcome. Okay, so here's what you need for this scrumptious little marinade. You're going to need a 1/3 cup of soy sauce. If you want to use a gluten-free brand, feel free. A 1/2 cup of oil. 1/3 cup of lemon juice. A 1/4 cup of Worcestershire. A 1/4 cup of Worcestershire sauce. A 1/4 cup of Worcestershire sauce. A 1/4 cup of Worcestershire sauce. 1½ tablespoons of garlic powder. 3 tablespoons of dried basil. 1 tablespoon of dried parsley. 1 teaspoon of minced garlic. And 1 teaspoon of black pepper. Now, you can leave this out if you're feeding little people, or add a few shakes of your favorite hot sauce if you want to kick things up a little bit. Now, before you add your steaks, I recommend you pound them out just a little bit to help break down the tendons and muscle fibers that run through them. Toss them in the marinade and refrigerate for at least 8 hours so that the juices have a chance to penetrate fully. If you do this in the morning on a Saturday or a Sunday, they will be ready to go by dinner time. Throw on the hot grill to get a nice little sear on both sides, and you can pull them off whenever they are cooked to your likeness. And remember, the longer you cook meat, the tougher it will become. So you really want to be careful with the amount of time they spend on the grill. Also, you need to resist the temptation to sprinkle any other seasoning on the steaks, as that may make them too salty or overpowering with flavor. You want the meat to be the star of the show, so no additional salt or seasoning is necessary. You can plate them with some nice grilled onions or bell peppers, toss up a fresh green salad, and you are ready to enjoy a wonderful marinated grilled petite sirloin. Give this one a try. Let me know how it turns out. Well, that will do it for this edition of Business Edge Radio. My parting shot today is this: a day without laughter is a day wasted. Charlie Chaplin. Until next time, this is Mitch Graff, reminding you to live every day like it's a Saturday and to live with passion. I'll catch you later.
Thanks for hanging out with Business Edge Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, we invite you to subscribe, rate, and review. Then hop on over to www.mitchgraff.com to get even more meat and potatoes. We also invite you to follow the show at facebook.com/Unleashed Tribe. The most valuable asset that any of us has is our time. And we thank you for choosing to spend some of your precious time with us.